Despite watching the original Predator movie in 1987, I only became aware of how deadly female Yautja could be in Stefani and Steve Perry's 1994 classic, AVP Prey. In one such chapter of this book, the authors described a time when a young Deshande was knocked sprawling after colliding with a female Yautja just minding her own business and going about her way. Since then, the popularity of the female hunters have spiraled out of control as the writers of a series of comic and video games have made a very concerted effort to introduce and expand the lore of female hunters. I'm Schizofenik, and in this video I will attempt to rank my personal top 5 deadliest female Yautja. Although women remain the fairer sex in our species, the animal kingdom is loaded with a plethora of examples where the females dominate. This can be seen in great white sharks, where the females are larger, in killer whales, where the matriarchs lead the pod, and in spiders, where the females eat the male after intercourse. It seems like the fictional Yautja species have followed the animal kingdom, and some incredibly large and powerful females have been written into existence. I will therefore begin by giving an honourable mention to A Kale from Proving Ground, written by Linda D. Addison in the Eyes of the Demon anthology. This female adjutant was the granddaughter of an elder clan leader who died of old age, and as a result was elected the new clan leader by the council after successfully completing her trials. Said to have an extensive trophy collection, this individual's deadly traits seemed to run in her bloodline. She had not been off-planet for months and was ready to do more than train first hunters on their homeworld. It was time to add to her extensive trophy collection. Unfortunately, with not enough information on her deadly exploits, I cannot place her on my top 5. We now move on to my list, and my 5th place entry goes to a humongous huntress named Hoshori. This gigantic female leader of the Widow clan, known as Hoshori, was first introduced to readers in Tim Lebbon's Rage War trilogy. This individual is quite possibly one of the largest Yautja ever written, and possessed a sadistic streak to go with it. This could be seen as Lebbon wrote. The creature who was towering over her, perhaps 9 feet tall, torso scarred with old battle wounds, it was also virtually naked. No armour, no weapons. Each of its clawed hands was as big as Lilia's head. Its feet were splayed and viciously tipped. It was unmasked, its wide hinged jaws opening and closing slightly as it breathed. The chain being wielded by Hoshori of the Widow clan appeared at first glance to be a traditional rope of smooth oval interlock shapes. This chain was spiked in 100 places, and each spike was tipped with the egg of a small horrific creature. The spike punched through the skin, the egg compressed and hatched, and the insects left inside the wound, suddenly woken by the violence and given freedom to writhe, crawl, and eat. Aside from being very large and taking pleasure in torturing her victims, there was very little information on Hoshori, and I could only rank her in 5th place as a result. If more information was made available, Hoshori could be much higher up on my list. My next choice continues the notion of the larger lady, as it's even inspired her name, Big Mama. Written by Chris Claremont, this 12-part saga would introduce Big Mama, a female Yautja that stalked a genetically engineered trophy wife named Karen Delacroix, who she would only refer to as Ash Parnell. Believed to be an elite-level Yautja, Big Mama managed to battle numerous xenomorphs and humans with ease, and even trained Karen in the ways of the Yautja. During the story, Big Mama proved to be a powerful warrior who was incredibly protective of Karen. Despite being captured by a xenomorph queen, Big Mama would eventually be assisted by the creature whilst fighting the White Hybrid King, a xenomorph human Yautja monstrosity. However, arguably the greatest hint to this Yautja's deadliness came in the form of her trophy cabinet, where we saw some of her most impressive kills. It was suggested that this predator killed deadly xenomorph subspecies, as well as the X-Men's Wolverine, Cyclops, and possibly even Batman. Considering that this was a feat that a male predator could not achieve, we would have to acknowledge Big Mama's deadliness. Despite this, however, I cannot place Big Mama any higher, as there are not quite enough examples of her deadly exploits. Although some writers have forgotten the concept of the female Yautja being larger than the males, our next group of lethal ladies make up for in deadliness what they lack in size. Perhaps better known for her appearance in the popular video game Hunting Grounds, the Yautja known as Cleopatra first appeared in Mark Morris and James A. Moore's novel Stalking Shadows. Although this formidable female Yautja destroyed Alan Schaefer's special team of predator hunters, her most impressive achievement was perhaps defeating Dutch himself. After decimating his team, she would turn her attention to Schaefer and had him beat after pinning him to the wall with her net gun. She would ultimately strike down the few remaining survivors with her plasma caster before nonchalantly freeing Dutch, then disappearing from sight. Once she picked off my men, she turned her attention to me. She pinned me against a wall with a razor net. I couldn't move. Every time I struggled, the net tightened, cutting into my body, my face. I was completely at her mercy. I'd accepted. I was going to die. I saw her walking toward me through the blood running into my eyes. She looked at me for a moment, and then she just vanished into the jungle. Her disregard for Schaefer as deadly prey is arguably her most frightening trait. She was smarter and deadlier. She didn't f*** around like the males did. She was direct, ruthless, and skilled. I fear we've kicked the hornet's nest on this one. And, well, now the queen is pissed. Clearly, Cleopatra is a deadly Yautja, however defeating Dutch and his team is just not enough information when compared to some of the others who have made it onto my list. Our next formidable female has made it into second place due to one incredibly bitter hunt. In 2022, Kim May introduced readers to Akili, a female enforcer who was tasked with hunting 3 lawbreaker Yautja on a desert planet where she caused them to crash land and make their last stand. This deadly trio were charged with some heinous intergalactic crimes, but most notably the murders of unarmed females and young, an act strictly forbidden by the Yautja Honor Code. Accompanied by her predator hound Zave, Akili would arm herself with some traditional weapons before embarking on this deadly hunt. What this text makes abundantly clear is the magnitude and difficulties of hunting bad bloods. May describes some of these challenges through Akili as she writes, Akili finally understood why the enforcers hated hunting their kind. It wasn't because of any distaste for the assignment. It was because the prey in question had the same technology and training that they did. Their usual tricks wouldn't work. Anytime prey was intelligent enough to know the limitations of their scanners, they instantly became a much more deadly species. This exact peril was elucidated as one of Akili's lawbreakers took a vantage position and tried to snipe her as she searched for her targets on the open terrain. A bright flash of light zipped past her and struck the ground to her left. Blasted chunks of rock rained down on them. Sniper. Akili, however, would showcase her superior experience and take cover in a ravine before spotting her attacker's heat signature as he knelt on the ridge. This female enforcer would valiantly run towards her antagonist whilst varying her path to avoid his plasma blasts before hurling her smart disc at him and slicing his throat. She would finish her target off by firing her plasma caster at his chest, then taking his head as confirmation of the kill. With her first target eliminated, Akili would use her topographic view to head towards an extinct nearby volcano. Knowing that the caves and lava tubes would provide good defensive positions, she anticipated her target's presence in these areas. Akili would use her intelligence and knowledge of the terrain to anticipate her attacker's position and take defensive cover as a result. Ultimately, it was within these caves that she engaged her second target, a temperamental hunter named Twakesi. After evading his smart discs, Achille would wedge his weapon further into the wall, nullifying any subsequent offense with that tool. She reached up and snatched the disc from above her head. Instead of stopping it, she pushed it further until it struck the stone behind her and was embedded so deep that the auto-recall wouldn't work. If he wanted it back, he'd have to come and get it. Moments like this truly exhibit Achilles' combat prowess and validate her place on my list. Eventually, she would outmaneuver Twakesi but pass on the opportunity to destroy him with her plasma caster, preferring a close quarters kill so that he would know exactly who killed him and how. He stood in the spot where she'd attacked, staring into the fissure. It would have been so easy to fire her plasma caster and be done with it, but that wouldn't be as satisfying as sinking her blade deep into his flesh. Achille wanted Twakesi to know it was her that ended his life. Eventually, Achille would get her wish and slay Twakesi with her dagger and wrist blades in a close quarters duel. Achille caught his wrist blades with hers and twisted the fist to the side. The blow he'd intended to hit her vulnerable torso with had completely missed instead. His mandibles flared in anger, the outburst made him pause, giving Achille an opening. She thrust her dagger into his lower abdomen and twisted the blade before pulling out. Phosphorescent green blood seeped from the wound. "How could you?" Achille said. They were unarmed females and young. Twakesi fell to his knees. He clutched his wound in his gut. "I don't regret killing them." "Then I don't regret killing you," Achille said. She kicked him over and used her dagger to sever his head. With her second kill achieved, Achille would move on to her most challenging target. Duarte, a formidable hunter that she was once proud to have trained herself. After unsuccessfully searching the surrounding areas, Achille would head back to her ship where she would find Duarte awaiting her within the vessel. After a skillful and brutal exchange with their smart discs, Achille would prove victorious by impaling his windpipe with her wrist blades. With this act, Achille had slain 3 lethal bad bloods in one hunt, establishing herself as one of the deadliest Yautja in the literary universe. This is particularly impressive considering the original Bad Blood story, where an enforcer failed to kill even 1 lawbreaker, yet alone 3. What was even more impressive than that is that Duarte was her own son. She forced herself to watch as he started to suffocate. It didn't matter how much her maternal side wanted to look away, she had to bear witness to this. Achille used her smart disc to bring his suffering to a quick end. She knelt beside him and let the tears flow freely. What Kim May reinforces in Bitter Hunt is the importance of the honor code. Nothing seems to take precedence over their strict rules of engagement, proving that blood is not thicker than water when it comes to Yautja culture. There is no greater dishonor than becoming a bad blood, where even family takes second place to honor, no matter how painful it might be. This brings us on to my first place entry, who is arguably one of the deadliest Yautja ever written. Weston Ox and Yvonne Navarro's 2022 novel Rift War tells the story of an initiation hunt upon LV-363, a planet that is scarred with deep rifts and seeded with xenomorph eggs by the Yautja known as RN. When the 3 hunting parties of 4 arrive, it is revealed that each consists of 3 juveniles that are led by a formidable hunting captain. These captains include the hulking former battle master and now elite captain Nightap, the overconfident but incredibly fast Tusa, and finally, our focus Yautja, the smaller fearless female named Katol. Despite her physical disadvantages, it is revealed that Katol possesses immense cunning and had previously defeated the aforementioned captains in numerous hunts. Remaining hyper-alert at all times, Katol is the first to notice humans on this planet. Forever a knowledgeable teacher to her students, Katol offers them valuable lessons for the hunt, which include conquering fear, not leaving a fellow Yautja behind, dealing with a facehugger, and killing a xenomorph. She could have killed it with barely a breath. Instead, she dodged low and to her left so that the inexperienced Zeno simply swept past her, swiping at the empty air where she had been. She wanted her unblooded to watch her kill this hard meat, their first viewing of a battle between a Yautja and a Zeno. On a different playing field, it would likely be able to kill its target and go on to bigger and better, learning as it grew. Here, however, it faced a seasoned Yautja hunt captain. There was no need to draw it out. Indeed, doing so would set a bad example for her wards, who might have a sense that it was okay to make a game of killing. That was far from the truth and could cost them their lives. The apex of its jump put her fully extended combi stick squarely into the centre of the Zeno's chest area, deep into its acid reservoir. Reflex made the creature extend its neck to snap at her before it squared, and its acid blood sprayed around the combi stick. However, a juvenile alien is not the only xenomorph Catol skillfully dispatches in this book, as she slaughters a whole host of other more formidable casts in a variety of ways. These include skillfully slaying the beasts with deadly weapons and even her bare hands. She had taken out several Xenos herself in a deadly spin of combi stick and wrist blades, slicing and carving up the creatures with barely an effort. He had to admit that she was among the best hunters that he had ever seen. She let it snap at her again, then gripped its main upper and lower jaws in her gloved hands. Grunting as her muscles bunched, she began to force its jaws apart. Between the plasma rounds, Catol weaved among their opponents, her extended combi stick and longer wrist blades a blur, anticipating the moves of both the attacking creatures and her two youngbloods. By the end of the ordeal, it is revealed that Catol has killed hundreds of xenomorphs. Perhaps the deadliest alien caste Catol slew was the Riftwing xenomorph hybrid known as the Xenowing, a larger flying insectoid version of the voracious beasts. Already having sealed Nightap's grisly fate, one of these creatures attacked Catol in an epic encounter, as you can read here. With long front claws hooked under the armour on both shoulders, it lifted her as though she weighed no more than a Jivening. Unexpected pain spiked through her shoulder muscles and Catol hissed, but there was no time to dwell on it. If this creature took her up too far, the fall might kill her, or worse, leave her to a fate like Nightap's. With her arms free, it took barely an instant to reach up with her wrist blades and shear off the legs holding her captive. Her attacker screeched and the fall was minimal, 20 knocks at the most. She went into a crouch. Abruptly, she sprang straight at it. With impossible speed, a sort of second mouth shot out of its face. When he thought she would run right into its maw, she dropped and slid feet first under its massive head. The bite missed and the hunter twisted beneath it, bringing up a short weapon that suddenly extended into a long rod with a sharp edge, hook spear on the end. She thrust it upward through the centre of the beast's neck, then yanked sideways with both hands until the weapon came free. Therefore, it is here that we finally understand that Catol is deadlier than the arrogant Nightap, who was defeated by one of these creatures. In fact, with Nightap's death, Catol adopts the mantle of senior captain upon this hunt. In addition to slaying deadly xenomorph castes, Catol is forced to do battle with her own kind on numerous occasions as she battles some other Yautja who have conspired against her. The newly blooded Yautja youth look down at her with disdain. "Step aside, Catol. I am your equal now." Catol hit Tasika on the side of his face so hard, he flew off his feet and landed 4 meters down the corridor. Before he could rise, she was standing next to him. She slammed a heavy, booted foot down on his chest shield and pinned him to the floor. He began to push himself up, but suddenly her wrist blades, notched with curved hooks and twice as long as those allotted to younger Yautja, were pushing against his throat. Then she laughed at him. "When you are as fast as me, when you are wise enough to train the young, and when you have made as many kills as me, then you might be my equal." Despite this humiliating defeat, Tasika did not learn his lesson and was subsequently killed by Catol when he challenged her again. She would later add another predator kill to her list with the death of the Yautja known as Vike, who she impaled with her combi stick. Then she spun, Twisting the stick out of the bad blood's hand, she bounded forward so quickly that Vike's own momentum made him fall forward. Before he could regain his balance and stand, she thrust her combi stick forward and down at an angle through Vike's neck. The power of the blow pushed the combi stick's blade all the way through his torso and out his lower back. Perhaps saddened by the death of the young Yautja, she realised who had turned him against her and set her sights on the Yautja that had been orchestrating the mutiny against her all along. This would be her toughest challenge and very own brother, Arwen. Her siblings' disdain towards her came to fruition during their own initiation hunt when the kill-hungry Arwen refused to leave the battlefield against his sister's better advice. With no choice left, Katol reluctantly left her bloodthirsty brother behind, an act strictly forbidden by the Yautja Honor Code. However, it gets worse. Katol never became a youngblood on this hunt, yet claimed the kills of her brother and went straight to the rank of Hunter, achieving 18 kills on another mission soon after. Although Katol was acquitted for owning up to her actions by a Yautja court, she always carried the heavy burden of these events. But the effects on Arwen's life were significant, as he received a funeral and was dead to his parents even after returning home years later. Inevitably, the two siblings would settle their differences with one another in mortal combat. Armed with a double-bladed combi stick that possesses electrified ends, Arwen was considered a formidable hunter that could rival Katol. During their epic exchange, the two inflicted significant wounds upon each other with specialized fighting techniques. He shifted on the ground and brought his stick down. She moved, but not fast enough. He caught her in the leg with the end of the blade. Electricity shot up the limb, deadening it as the pain and pleasure receptors were overloaded. She captured his wrist and bent it forward until it pinched the nerve, bringing a scream out of him. Katol concentrated on his captured wrist and pressed hard until she heard it snap. However, no clear winner could be determined as the fight was interrupted by 3 Xeno wings. Although Katol managed to slay her tormentor, Arwen could not fight off the 2 that attacked him and ultimately died a horrific death. Saddened by her brother's death, Katol vowed to return to Yautja Prime in order to set the record straight with the elders regarding her dishonourable past. However, I feel that she more than made up for it with the exploits during this hunt, which saw her earn first place on this elite list of deadly female Yautja. I hope that you enjoyed this list of lethal ladies, but feel free to list your own top 5 in the comment section. Please remember to like and subscribe if you'd like to subscribe, and I hope to be back with more Predator content soon, but until then, it's goodbye from me. Take care.